That is true. But you could see the determination and the drive, and I think that's where I realized that the drive and the character was there, and for me to kind of jump ship and against my inner circle of friends and family telling me like, you are crazy to leave your career behind and go do this. But I realized that it was really the future in a future way, and that these guys were going to do it, and shame on me for not jumping on board. So
yeah, and I think like just super randomly, like in designing the SpaceX logo and name, and then the Tesla logo name, I'd worked with a couple of graphic designers that randomly knew Franz, and they said they gave me like the thumbs up. And
one of my best friends was dating the girl who was working on
graphics. So it's kind of a small. I think it was like Kimberly. I think. Yeah. So like Kimberly was like, gave a good endorsement of me, in fact, if you see sort of slight similarities between the Tesla name and the SpaceX name, it's sort of there's a reason for that. Because it was sort of done by sort of the same team, anyway, so Franz joined basically I think you started mid 2008.
Yeah, around August 2008.
Yeah.
And we had talked several times about designing a sedan for Tesla, and of course this thing needed to carry 7 people.
Well, I said that was my fault.
No, but thinking like, okay,
like,
this
I gotta put my kids in here. Like, so it's like Franz. So we need 2 rear-facing seats. Okay, this
will be a good challenge.
Yeah, I think it was like quite a difficult set of requirements, and we didn't even have the money for a design studio. So the design studio in the beginning just was just a corner of the SpaceX rocket factory. So we basically just put a tent.
Yeah, we pitched a tent in, like my first day, we put up the tent, and that became the design studio. We had, I think, a couple contract guys, and we started in earnest. One of the first things we did was drive a forklift through a Fisker model, dump it in the dumpster, and that was basically the beginning of kind of clean slate, start over, do it the Tesla way. Kind of jettison the past a bit.
Yeah, exactly. So we just started really from the beginning when Franz joined, designing the Model S from scratch. And one of the things that was obviously very important was to design a car that is meant to be an electric car, as opposed to a gasoline car that is then repurposed for an electric car. So the fundamental design, coupled with the engineering, we really need to design it for an electric powertrain and battery, and so it couldn't really be, particularly on the in the internals, derivative of a gasoline car, because it doesn't work. It sort of would be the equivalent of a horseless carriage. Like, you don't want a horseless carriage, you want a car. And we weren't really trying to follow any. We certainly weren't trying to copy or emulate any other car designs. It really was just we need to design a car that's meant to be an electric car that looks great and achieves the functionality that we're aiming for. And it was just a tiny team doing the Model S design in a tent in a corner of the SpaceX factory.
Yeah, and it's amazing to think about where the car is today from its kind of little humble beginnings. So, yeah, thanks for getting that started.
Yeah, thanks for joining. So yeah, and then going on to 2009. And just backtracking slightly, and so in 2008 we were really still trying to figure out how not to die. And one of the things was that I thought would really help is if we had a strategic partner, like one of the big car companies, to be a strategic partner. And so in October of 2008, actually, I think it was, I stopped over in Germany, in Stuttgart, and met with Dr. Weber, who is the head of R&D for Daimler. and said like, look, we'd love to figure out how to work with Daimler. Is there anything that you guys need on the electric vehicle front? Is there anything we could do? And he said, well, they want to make an electric smart car, but they don't have a good source for the battery and powertrain. So I was like, okay, this sounds like maybe we could help here. And he said that, well, there's a Daimler team, a senior Daimler team that's planning to visit Silicon Valley and meet with a bunch of companies in January, I think it's like January 10th or something like that, of 2009. And I was like, okay, so we've got 3 months, okay. And he said that he would ask them to meet with Tesla and kind of make their assessment. So I was like, okay, wow. So then I immediately, as soon as I left that meeting, I called JB and it's like, JB, we have 3 months to make a working electric smart car. JB was like, what are you talking about? And it's like, okay, there's some challenges here because the smart car was not actually available in the United States.
Couldn't even get one.
You couldn't get one. They weren't shipping in the U.S. Did you want to tell
Yeah, sure. This was a kind of ridiculous, crazy story.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, of course, we were all hard at work trying to make the Roadsters actually work and scale up production.
Exactly.
So
it's not like we didn't have stuff on our plate.
This was quite a non sequitur. So 3 months. We put together a rough plan on how we could even possibly achieve this. And first of all, we had to get a car physically, and the only place we could figure out to get one this fast was in Mexico. So, literally, the next day we sent an engineer to Mexico with about $20,000 in cash to go and try and.
It was legal. I mean, sort of. Sort of legal.
To purchase a smart car, and he drove it all the way back to San Carlos. And I think the day after that, we tore the entire, propulsion system out of it and started designing a custom battery pack, from scratch. We had ideas on how we had done the Roadster pack, of course, but that didn't fit in this car. It was way too big. So, a very tiny team, small SWAT team of engineers, prototyped and architected a one-off battery pack, a lithium-ion battery pack that could fit into the smart car.
Yeah, and I did make things slightly more difficult because I said, like, look, you got to put the powertrain and the battery pack in the car, and it needs to look unmodified.
Yeah. Couldn't touch the passenger compartment.
Yeah,
so it had
exactly.
To,
you couldn't just like put it in the trunk, like just have a big battery pack sitting there in the trunk or something. It's like it needs to look like it's a normal smart car.
So the battery was a big challenge. We had to invent this brand new battery pack in a couple months and build it. Then on the drivetrain, we had to figure out how to adapt a Roadster motor and power electronics system and charging system into the back of the smart car in this tiny volume. And amazingly, we were able to repackage that whole thing. That team didn't sleep a whole lot in those couple of months, and it was also through the holidays, which was great.
Yeah, exactly. Thanksgiving, Christmas.
But everybody was having the time of their lives. It was super, super fun. We were in a little teeny garage in San Carlos, trying to make this, smart car electric. And one of the things we realized pretty early on is that this was going to be the fastest smart car that had ever been made.
So this was amazing.
It had all the torque, would have all the torque of a Roadster packaged into this tiny little car.
It was so fast you could do wheelies in the parking lot.
Yeah, it was, anybody that got in that car, exited just with a huge smile on their face. They just absolutely loved it. So that car basically led up to the meeting where we, met with all the Daimler engineering leaders and executives.
Exactly. Let me tell you about how the meeting went. Like, so the Daimler sort of senior engineering team shows up, and it was clear when they entered the building they were like not excited about meeting with some like American car startup, whatever, so they'd like been told, that they needed to do this, and they were like, well, this is obviously going to be a waste of their time, and they're quite grumpy, actually, and we started off with a PowerPoint presentation, and they really didn't like the PowerPoint presentation, so I said, you know what? Why don't we skip the PowerPoint presentation? Would you like a test drive? And they're like, well, what are you talking about? What do you mean a test drive? I'm like, yeah, we made one. I'm like, made one? What do you mean? Yeah, we made one. So it's just outside. Do you want to drive it? And they're like, sure. So then they went out and test drove the insane performance smart car. As JB was saying, it's like basically you can't exit that without a grin on your face. So they went from being a bit grumpy to be like, holy cow, this is awesome. And we actually, out of that meeting, it got our first development contract with Daimler to create an electric smart car, and that was really, I think if we hadn't done that, Tesla would have died, because the Daimler partnership gave us credibility that a major OEM was willing to work with us. And they also, they paid us for the development program, which is really helpful from a revenue standpoint. And then most importantly is that when Tesla kind of was running out of money around May 2009, and I had no money left. I'd given all of the money that I had remaining to Tesla. I didn't even own a house. And I had to borrow money from friends to pay rent. So I was like, man, I am out of resources. So I was like, we need, I just don't even have any more money to invest. So then we need to seek outside investment. And this is early 2009. And just to sort of paint the picture, General Motors and Chrysler were going bankrupt at the time. The idea of investing in an electric car startup was not popular. We would talk to investors, and they would be angry that we even called them. But thankfully, Daimler did invest, and then they invested $50 million in May of 2009, which was a lifesaver. So I just really, I'd like to just say thanks and give a hand to Daimler for that. I was like, So, without that investment, Tesla would have been game over. So they invested, thankfully, and that gave us the resources that we needed to get the company to moderately healthy position, and actually get us to the point where we could build roadsters without losing money on every car. So our roadsters that we delivered were significantly negative gross margin until about basically third or fourth quarter of 2009, because we had to redesign so much of the car, we had to change out suppliers, and so actually every roadster we sold before, say, the second half of 2009 actually cost more money than it did. We earned less revenue than it cost to build. But by late 2009, we'd finally redesigned the car and changed out most of our suppliers, and were able to generate positive margin on the car, and then we had positive margin on the Daimler development contract. So the combination of those two factors got us to a reasonably healthy position, but we would never have gotten there without the Daimler investment. And I think this is important because a lot of people think that Tesla was bailed out by the federal government or something like that. This is not true. We were bailed out, but by Daimler, not by the government. So they're the ones who deserve the credit here. We wouldn't be around. Tesla wouldn't be around if they hadn't helped out. In fact, we still have an ongoing program with Daimler for an electric B class, and we're there's a great bunch of guys. So.
Yeah, it's worth saying that first SMART program led to what became a pretty thriving powertrain business for Tesla in those intermediate years. We made a lot of profit, as Elon was saying, and did some great engineering work for Daimler, building a production Smart EV and then also a production EV A class, and today the B class, which is still shipping. And those programs also taught us a huge amount. Being a supplier to Daimler was not terribly pleasant sometimes, but it also trained us in quality, and it trained us in some of the systems that they had used for 100 years. So we got to really accelerate up the learning curve on building some of these very complex systems and how they validated them and how they made them last for hundreds of thousands of miles.
Absolutely. So we just want to express a huge word of appreciation for Daimler and their help with Tesla, and without which we would just not be around. So thank you. So, and then sort of getting to the DOE loan, which a lot of people are aware of, people, there's some people out there who sort of constantly beat Tesla over the head with this DOE loan thing, and it's important to appreciate what this program was about, which was it was actually a program that was signed into law during the Bush administration, although. Yeah, it was executed during the Obama administration, but it was signed into law during the Bush administration. And it was a program that was intended to accelerate the development of energy-efficient cars. And one of the prerequisites for being in this program was demonstrating that you were a going concern, which is why this program was inaccessible to GM and Chrysler because they were bankrupt. But unfortunately, in the media, this got confused with there was the auto bailout, and then there was the energy efficiency loan program, which really got conflated, but are actually completely different programs. And the first money that Tesla got from the DOE loan program was actually only in March of 2010. And the way the loan program worked was that there were a whole bunch of milestones of technical milestones and product development milestones that we could only invoice for the milestones after they'd been accomplished, and then Pricewaterhouse would audit the financials, and then we would send a request to draw down the loan in little bits and pieces. So it would usually take maybe 2 to 3 months after we'd actually spent the money to receive any of the loan proceeds. So again, this is really fundamentally different from what happened in the auto bailout, although a lot of people sort of think it's the same thing. And the timing that we started receiving DOE loan money was after Tesla was out of the danger zone. So if Tesla had actually needed the DOE loan when we were in dire straits, we would have been doomed. So by 2010, Tesla was actually in sort of a moderately healthy position. And the DOE energy efficiency program was meant to serve as a catalyst for the acceleration of energy efficient vehicles, and that was its purpose. So because people tend to sometimes say it was either completely necessary or completely unnecessary, and neither of those are true. The fundamental purpose, and I think the DOE did a great job of implementing it to that end. The fundamental purpose of the DOE loan was to accelerate the advent of sustainable transport, and we, and it's very important to note that Tesla could have raised money from alternate sources. So this was not, we could have raised money from an equity standpoint or from a debt standpoint outside of the DOE loan program, but the DOE loan program was there. Our competitors were using it. So Ford, for example, got I think $5 or $6 billion from this program. Nissan got $1.6 billion. Tesla for the Model S program got $380 million, and then $100 million for a powertrain factory to supply other companies. Fisker, I think, got 500. They got more than we did, 500 or 600. So, I mean, of the names that you've heard of, Tesla actually got by far the least, and I think did quite a lot with those proceeds. But it's important. This was definitely helpful and served a catalytic purpose, which was the intent of the program. But it was not a case of sort of being, as some of accused Tesla of sort of being propped up by the government or something that was fundamentally necessary for Tesla to exist. It was helpful and catalytic, but not fundamental. The Daimler investment a year earlier was fundamental, but not the DOE loan.
I think something most people always seem to overlook was it was a loan. It wasn't a grant. So, I mean, this is obvious, perhaps in the name, but we have to pay it back. And that was
Yes.
very different than the Daimler investment, which was an equity investment in the company.
Yes.
So this is something where we had to start planning on how we would pay that back and prove to them that we would pay it back
With interest.
with interest over the expected period of time before we even could get the loan.
Yep. So I just want to make sure it's sort of real precise. Tesla is certainly grateful for this, and it was very helpful, but it was not necessary. It was not fundamentally necessary.